Peace and respect to you all. Welcome to Demolished Doctrine, the beginning of the end of religion. And this week, this regular Wednesday show, we are honored to have with us both of our scheduled guests, both MacTheHuman and BigZebra.com. And Big Zebra, you brought a friend with you, Erica Mallet. Peace and respect, Erica.
Hello, Erica.
Hi, Erica.
We were talking about Lewis Carroll in the backstage chat, and
Yes.
I mentioned that I had a little Lewis Carroll story for you, not one of the naughty ones. It is, but I found it very funny. The royal family in the UK, instead of going shopping, say at a bookstore, they might have an official bookstore and they might say, please send us some fiction, or please send us more work by so-and-so.
Sure.
So she had enjoyed, maybe it was Alice in Wonderland, and Her Majesty said, please send us more by this author. So this box of books arrives, and I doubt she unpacked them herself. But in them were all these books by Lewis Carroll, aka Charles Dodson. And there were all these mathematics textbooks.
Right.
And she was sort of going, what the hell is this? You know?
He was mainly a mathematician.
Yes. And I bet whoever it was at the bookstore she patronized was having a private little laugh. You know? To say, oh, well, I know who this really is, so I'll send her all the books. And enjoy this thing on hyperbolas in 5-dimensional end space, or whatever it is Charles Dodson wrote about. How have you two been?
No, never better. I've been just fine. I had an adventurous week at work. I had some very challenging moments, but my family is healthy and well and dry and warm. So I feel good about things right now. I feel like things are going pretty well. It's been a good year so far. So
Yes, it hasn't been a long one. Just you got through 1/12,
exactly.
which is 8-point-something%. I'm not sure.
Before you know it, it's 2024, and I'm signing up for the gym again.
Yes, the annual gym sign-up, which is it's always the beginning of the breaking of your New Year's resolution.
Did you know that Ireland has made official bank holiday St. Bridget's Day starting this year? And it's
No,
on the 6th of February. Yeah,
I'm not familiar with St. Bridget.
well, she predates Christianity.
Oh,
She's a sort of Bridget was a Celtic goddess that Christianity sort of adopted
ah,
when it moved into Ireland.
right.
Excuse my dog there.
Hello, dog.
But she's very popular, and there a lot of like her symbolism and stories are a big part of the people in Ireland
Oh, okay.
and part of their culture, and so they voted on this whether this should become a bank holiday, and they voted yes. So now at least in a legal sense, there's a goddess on the same level as a male. Divine figure in Ireland, Saint Patrick. So, it's kind of
Excellent.
a cool. I see it as a progression.
And
I
she's
see it as a
probably the
growth.
patron saint of banking, so it's very appropriate. Okay, that was dumb. I
She
enjoyed.
represents the light. She represents the light that returns every year. So,
Ah, okay.
yeah. So actually, today is her traditional holiday, which we celebrate as Groundhog's Day. At least, you know,
Is it Groundhog's Day?
I don't know if that's a Canadian holiday or not, but in the States, that's today.
We have a different Groundhog Day, and we also have a really weird groundhog. He's called Warrington Willie, and he's an albino groundhog.
No kidding.
and he's died several times. And instead of resurrecting him, as might be appropriate, he is instead, they find another albino
Huh.
rodent somewhere. And oh, Erica is telling us that Groundhog's Day is tomorrow. Maybe.
Oh, you're right. It is tomorrow. It's the 2nd.
I
That's
had
one of
something
those
I wanted
days.
to ask Richard about, but I wanted to
That's right.
give Mac first shot.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Please. That's great.
Well, as regular viewers of this show will know, I'm
Mhm.
not the most philosophical of people. It's not that I don't respect it, but I find um, reading books on philosophy rather dizzying, which is embarrassing but true. And but I was thinking the other day, I saw that our friend Richard here did a show where they were talking about epistemology, and I was thinking, well, of course, Richard's had his own revelation, and there are many other. Uh, Muhammad certainly did, and Paul had his road to Damascus. And because individual revelation is, a person could always question their own, did Paul on the road to Damascus actually fall off his horse and hit his head on a rock? And that's the source of his personal revelation. It certainly was powerful to him. But what do we do in a world which is frankly filled with personal revelation? And yet the rest of us who lack that are trying to fumble our way along.
Okay, in order of what was given,
Mm.
everyone is a philosopher. Even if you make the inane statement, I don't like philosophy, that's a
Mm.
philosophical position.
I
Uh,
think so.
uh, so yeah, that's an Aaron Ra, which made no sense from its very beginning. The first time he ever stated it. Um, Secondly, there was two ways to take the sentence, but I wanted to give Mac first crack at it. It could have meant, as Mac took it, that you wanted to give the floor to Mac first to question something and begin the show, or it could be taken as I wanted Mac to answer before Richard. And I
Oh
think it was the latter.
Oh.
no! I because Richard is very open to answering questions. I wanted Mac to have the first shot if he had something on his mind.
Okay, then I was wrong, and Mac was right.
Okay.
That was interesting to explore either way.
Mhm.
Uh, okay, in a world full of personal revelations, and the significance of that is, I suppose, and please correct me, what makes any given personal revelation something that other people should perhaps care about? Is that it?
Well, the thing is that suppose someone, for example, Muhammad and the Quran,
Mm-hmm.
um, people seem to be very, very good at making sense and finding coherence in someone else's personal revelation.
Mm-hmm.
So you would want someone's revelation to be consistent, and your analysis of the Bible is certainly consistent. I don't claim to understand it, but I do what I can. And uh, I think, is it just all of us human beings making sense out of what other human beings are saying or thinking? Uh, but what is real? I hate to sound like Darth Dawkins, but what is fundamental? What's the ultimate basis here? That we want to reveal truth rather
Mm.
than uh, just indulge in someone else's thoughts.
Right. Before we get to that, there's a question for MacTheHuman.
That's obviously they have not gone out of style. I don't know what you're talking about. They're always in
Great
style.
Oh, by the way, thank you, Ox. I do like my stripes.
What's up, Ox?
Yes, they are very nice. Clean.
Steve, don't you think? I mean, if you really want to get, you know, epistemological here, what do we have besides personal revelation? I mean, what do we have except for our own experience? You know, and that includes our own experience of other people's experiences that they've conveyed to us,
Yes.
you know? I
Yes,
mean,
I'm worried that I would descend into complete solipsistic.
that's kind of
Yeah,
where
let's
we're headed,
Yeah.
so.
let's
You
jump
know?
right to Schrodinger's cat and get it over with.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
We don't know. Okay, so
Yeah.
so the best we can do is the best we can do. And what's the best we can do? The best we can do is it consistent within itself? Because it's not, you can make it into anything. And I don't even care what piece of literature we're talking about. It could be
Right.
the Bible. It could be
Yeah, Moby Dick or whatever.
yeah, Moby Dick. Great
Yeah.
example. In fact, that was the exact book I was looking for in my brain.
Oh,
Um,
weird.
Not so weird. Peace and respect to Clout. Um, is it consistent within itself? Okay, that's a pretty good eliminator. It's not. It doesn't confirm a thing that it's consistent with it. Harry Potter, consistent within itself, not real. Okay.
Right.
Yes.
So what differentiates Harry Potter from perhaps the Bible? Something like that.
Um,
I was going to.
yes. Also, you know, but my chief concern is that we can, if some lunatic started rambling on the street corner, but he wrote everything down. We years later we discover the manuscript and we create internal logic. For example, Richard, you pointed out more than once that interpretation of the Bible is frequently wrong. Yet the people who are doing such things may be in some shack in the Ozarks while handling snakes. They wouldn't tell you that the Bible lacks internal logic, that it's inconsistent.
This is why I make it my life's work to point out people's inconsistencies in their reading frame.
Hmm.
To attack the very consistency they believe they have. You know, like the whole purpose of what I've nicknamed the Sabbath syllogism is to point out that people go to church every week on either Saturday or Sunday or what have you.
Right.
Sorry, Mac, that was just, it's a comedy routine. I was thinking of something even funnier based on the chair lowering. But,
All right, there we go.
there, okay, so the whole purpose of the Sabbath syllogism is to point out they have made a weekly ritual of something that has not yet happened, which makes no sense in reality. Which brings me back to Harry Potter. The reason that we don't believe Harry Potter, although we're good at entertaining and keeping track of storylines in possible worlds, and I can make true and false statements about Harry Potter, right? Harry Potter was assigned into the group Slytherin.
Right.
Is false. Now, how is it false? It's false because it doesn't follow the storyline, but that has nothing to do with our reality.
Right.
Okay, so that's an alternative world. It's another universe. You could say it like that. So the difference between the Bible, possibly, and Harry Potter is Harry Potter does not have basis in our understanding of the actuality. It's fiction. Does the Bible, or could the Bible, have correspondence to our actual state of affairs? Yes, if you read it a certain way. All right, so that's another form of measurement, and it's not, again, a confirmation. It's only a possible dissolution, a disproving, is what that would be. Okay.
So the snake handlers in the Ozarks, they, you know, as long as the snakes don't bite them and they get the confirmation of their internal logic and can demonstrate to their satisfaction that it applies to reality.
No, that's not what the text describes. The text describes you can be bitten by snakes and it won't hurt you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right. Okay.
Oh, that's
So
right.
then,
Yeah.
yeah, I think they do that too. I think they make the
They
snakes
need
bite
to
them.
get bitten and not get a scar from it,
Right. I don't know if
or
they do
loss
that
of
or not.
muscle, or any, they all get hurt. They all get hurt.
Mm.
Well, then they
When
should be able to say, then this doesn't apply to reality the way we understand it.
right, right.
Yeah. Do they ever? I think they do. I think
Some
people
quit.
do. Yeah.
Some quit because they see people get hurt by the snakes. I
Why don't
mean,
they eat the snakes?
that would be a better plan.
It's good eating.
I mean, since they're taking the Bible out of time context
Mm.
in its promises, and there's obvious and evident failures in the promise because they've taken it out of context, they should go, wait a minute. But they generally don't. But you can see preachers, snake handling preachers, whose arms are just extremely disfigured because
Oh.
they had muscle that had to be removed because it would have become necrotic because it
Oh,
was
wow.
dying because of
Really?
the snake poison. Yeah, oh,
That never
go
even
look at
occurred
their
to me.
arms. Go look at their arms. They're hideous. It's like,
Wow.
why are you still doing this? Why did you ever do it a second time?
Don't
It's
they drink
evident that
poison,
some of
too?
them, their arms are extremely disfigured.
Oof.
Maybe it's a testimony to faith. I'm still believing. I'm going to pick up this damn snake because Jesus told me to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
There's a lot
you
of
know,
that.
it happened on EA Dawa not so long ago, a couple weeks ago, that someone was testifying about reincarnation, and their testimony was that if you go into your own memory deep enough, you will realize that you were reincarnated, and you will have memories of being reincarnated. And the panel asked of this gentleman, "What has your experience been?" He says, "Well, I have failed. I have never.
Wow.
You
I
mean he
have never
can't?
gotten to. What's that?
Yo, you mean he can't recall past lives? Yet he
Right,
Yeah.
says,
exactly.
"Oh,
So, so, so his testimony is try it, although I couldn't do it. That's his testimony, which is about the same as saying, I said to the guy, I said, look, what you're telling me is I have a car and you have a car, and my car's out of gas and your car once ran out of gas, and you added water to the gas tank and it didn't help, and you want me to add water to my gas tank. That's what you're telling me. Like, could this be a worse idea? Like, you already know this fails. Stop selling it to me.
you know, Richard, we should create online identities other than the ones we already have, and go
For
into
what?
these chat rooms and troll. And for example, say I remember my previous life identity, and you know how people always imagine that they used to be kings or queens or
Sure.
Yeah, it's
heroes.
always something famous, something
Right.
Yes, and
posh.
I was thinking that you could say that it was my job to wash the floors in the castle.
Right.
And I remember
I-
on Tuesday, such and such, I started at the top, and there's this one flag, and give erroneous amounts of sheer detail, and
in
just
my
keep
prior
going.
life, they didn't have toilets. They hadn't been invented yet.
Eh.
And I was the one that carried a bucket for people to urinate into.
Steady work.
So my whole job was, hold the bucket by the handle out away from my body. So I don't want to get splashed,
Yeah.
and turn my head away so I'm not watching them do it because they're rich people and you just don't look at them, so they might have some endowment that's not so grand. You don't want to see that or embarrass them. They'll kill you.
Wow. Well, it would
Yes,
just be so much fun just to go in and
it's
try and
ridiculous
bore
that
them to death.
everyone ever who was reincarnated was a famous person. It's just freaking ridiculous. Yeah, I see your
Yeah.
point.
Just wow, it's like your past lives are more interesting than your present one.
Huh?
Just
Weird. Wonder why
yes,
that would be.
yes, yes. But again, there's someone creating a cohesive narrative that in which reincarnation is incorporated into their. I hate to use the word worldview, but
Yeah,
worldview.
worldview is fine. Okay, all right. So it should correspond to reality, and that would be evidence that it's not false.
Right.
Okay.
Mm, Well, that doesn't seem to
Further,
be required, though.
what?
Um,
No, it
That's
is
the thing.
required. It's just people don't do it.
yes, yes, but the people don't require it.
Yeah, but that's
I,
cognitive dissonance.
okay,
That's
yes,
them denying an obvious truth. That they're compartmentalizing. I keep logic over here. I keep religion over here, and never the twain shall meet. Someone once said non-overlapping magisteria. They're two different categories that shouldn't be mixed. Well,
Hmm.
I'm sorry, but if you have reality and then you have something outside of reality, it is literally not real.
mm, yes,
Like if your conception of God exists outside of what does exist, it's literally non-existent.
well, some Christians, I've heard it said more than once, that God must exist outside of time and space
Oh
You could
yeah,
because
say
that's
that's
the
that.
only
valid.
way it could have created time and space.
Right, but that's under the assumption that's a presupposition that such God did create time space.
Yes.
Well, tell me where you found that.
I insist when I hear that actually God didn't create time and space, that there's a horseshoe crab, his name's Malcolm, and he
Malcolm?
likes to create universes, but aside from that, he doesn't he's not up to much. But he
Just a
may
normal
not be
horseshoe
God,
crab
but he's
aside
one
from that.
hell of
Right.
a horseshoe crab.
Right. And what is this? Because horseshoe crabs normally need bodies of water.
Yeah, well, he's special, you know. He swims through the unreality beyond time and space and creates universes willy nilly.
Just like
Everyone
Well,
needs
Leo.
a hobby.
again, if he's outside of the reality, he is actually not real. That's what
What?
outside of reality would
Well,
mean.
you don't understand my horseshoe crab, just
You're
like I
right, I
don't
don't.
understand their God.
I don't understand their God either. But I do understand the God of the Bible, at least to some extent, enough that I know there's no such claim in the text. So it just doesn't claim that.
Mm,
And because of that, it at least does not defeat the actuality that we see. It doesn't defeat it. Okay. So again, that's another disqualifier that could say, okay, if it tried to defeat reality, I'd say that's false, because it has to be false.
I suppose it's just that so many things. Erica mentioned what are your thoughts on past life regression? And I think it's nonsense, but I'm sure that for the for many of the people, not everyone's a grifter or a bad actor. I'm
Oh
sure
no,
That's
many
true.
people are all over. They really think it's real,
for
and they
sure.
can remember fragments of past lives because of the incredible imagination humans possess.
Hmm.
Actually, sometimes it doesn't work to just say incredible imagination. That doesn't always work.
It isn't? Okay.
No,
Well,
sometimes it's actual information that's true in reality and can be known and can be falsified,
oh, okay, sure.
which is the most convincing stories, which are rare. Those stories are rare, but they do exist. Okay.
Yes,
But
and
ultimately, if I say something like it's only imagination, then I should never find where it actually
Hmm.
comports to reality.
That's
right.
true.
So, for example, suppose I imagine that I lived in an English village and you know, 800 years ago, and
Yeah.
I mentioned my favorite song, which was "Summer Is a Comin' In,"
Yeah.
and it turns out, of course, it's the earliest song in English, and that I
Uh huh.
read it years ago and then completely forgot about it. But
Right.
now my memory has resurged.
Oh sure,
I
yeah.
think I'm having a past life regression,
What was your name?
Bob. But people who have had,
Just Bob.
yeah,
Okay.
people who have had strokes and things
Sure.
will imagine that even though they can't see, they
Mm-hmm.
will, if you ask them, what do you see right now? They will tell you, and they will see things.
Hmm.
And
Yes.
uh, i just amazing human brain stuff, but it doesn't mean we are accurate, of course.
Right. Right. Of course. But if a person had a real life, they would have had mundane moments,
Yes.
and they would have had ponderings during that life where they thought about maybe some stupid stuff.
Mm.
and they would have had points where they were, of one mindset, and that's morphed or evolved over time into a different mindset, and that's what aging is like, and
Mm.
all of that would be. But you never hear of that kind of thing.
No, you never hear of someone who I don't know was locked in a jail for like 80 years and then died.
Right.
We never hear that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
I
for
don't
a
know.
for a,
I've heard
a
some.
jaywalking or something stupid, not
I
Yeah.
paying
recently,
taxes.
I don't know how relevant this is, but I recently read an article about a young woman who, well, she identifies as a man, or he identifies as a man in Vietnam, who grew up insisting that he was a man who died violently in a specific village during the Vietnam War,
Mm-hmm.
and remembered their profession, which was fishing, which is not an unusual profession in Vietnam. But even
Mm.
as a very young person, he was able to do the kind of complex rope tie, and got very angry when they weren't allowed to. Like it was like, no, I've got work to do. Like leave me alone. I need to, I need to do this and get this boat out and everything. And there was a lot of discontent in their life growing up until they found the village and the place, the spot where they died. At least that's their
Wow.
experience of it, and it was like a breakthrough for them. And that's when they were like, nope, from now on, I am just this guy. Like I remember being this person, and that's who I am. And so,
That's
and
amazing.
right, yeah, and this is a
Okay.
contemporary. He's alive now, and writes about it and stuff like that. I'm not
Thing
saying
is,
that
if
it
they're
demonstrates
American,
reincarnation
Americans have
or
a history of going to Vietnam.
true.
But I just, in my mind's eye, he goes back to Vietnam, buys the village, and never mind. Being silly.
Becomes governor.
Yeah.
What was that you just were finishing up with, Mac? What were you trying to say?
Sorry, Mac. Yeah.
No, we ran over each other. There was pauses. Everyone thought that they should talk, and they did. It
Mm.
happens.
So I guess I was just going to reflect on that. I don't see that story, even though it's interesting and compelling, as evidence of reincarnation. I think the idea of reincarnation explains that story pretty well, but I don't think that means that it's evidence of reincarnation. If you get the
Right. Okay.
distinction,
So
yeah.
so what's the minimal we can say about it, making as few assumptions as possible? I mean, if it's absolutely true, if that actually happened,
Right, we have to first assume that, but yeah, because
because we're
obviously,
hearing it as a story. It wasn't my experience.
right.
Okay.
I
So
just
let's
and I
let's
read it.
assume it's true and look at what's the minimum we have to say did happen.
Otherwise unobtainable information was obtained by an individual who shouldn't have had access to it.
Mm.
Okay. So outside of the individual's experience,
Yeah,
they had understanding of information.
right.
Okay.
Like a skill, muscle memory, being able to make a net,
There was
That's
which
an
yep,
I'm sure
assumption.
isn't easy.
That's
there
an
was
assumption.
skill, and there was physical skill, fine motor skill, and
Fine
memories.
motor skill. Okay.
Yeah, memories
And
that mapped
memories.
onto real events that
Okay.
included specifics, so
Okay.
names and things like
I
that.
don't believe that muscle memory is a thing. I mean, if
I,
you do nothing but curls and you never work the back of your arm, your bicep will be stronger than the back of your arm.
well,
That's
what I
true.
really mean is that there are portions of your mind that
Mind.
are tuned to repeating physical tasks.
Right.
Yes.
But
And they can become more
that's,
automatic to the mind.
yes. Erica mentions that she's read about past life regression and locating dates and locations and that sort of thing. And I know it's
Yes.
more common in India where reincarnation is thought to be real.
They
And
might just
there
look
have been
into it.
many
Yeah.
stories I've read of where someone insists that they've lived before. And so you have like an 8-year-old, and then they track down the city
Right.
where they lived and they find the person they used to be in the history books,
Right.
so to speak.
Yes, but the person existed.
Mm.
Okay, and because the person existed, people knew about that person. And so there is a series of minds who already had this information.
Mm-hmm.
And they existed in reality, which is why the story is verifiable.
Mm.
Okay? Like, for instance, a person born accidentally lost, and the woman who lost the baby, her whole family didn't even know that she was pregnant in the first place, and she kept it a secret to her death because of the embarrassment. But the child somehow survives, raised by wolves, but is a hermit out in the woods and dies of old age, healthy, but dies of old age,
Right.
is not a story that can be confirmed
Right.
ever. Okay,
That's right.
so that will never be a past life regression story.
Mm.
Because there are no minds who know it. All right? And actually, that's a horrible example, but, all examples fail at some point. But, okay, so the Bible actually addresses this and explains it in reality. Okay? If you will grant me, which there's always some of that, isn't there? If you will grant me that that it is possible to have remote communication, if you'll grant me that, which is, essentially what we're doing right now is remote communication. I don't see either one of you in this shop. Okay, and that's possible. And if you ask me the mechanism of prayer, I don't know. We haven't studied that, and cellular memory is another topic altogether. There are animals that work only by instinct, so there is apparently cellular genetic information there that causes actions. That's evidently true.
Sure.
No insect needs to be taught what plant to munch.
Right.
They know what plant to munch. Okay, so sort of no is not the right word. They'll act upon the right plant to munch. But anyway, okay, so it speaks, and although Christians don't like it when I say this very much, I think it talks about familiar demons, but it also talks about angels who have a relationship with us.
Mm.
Now, bear in mind, these demons and these angels live an extremely long period of time, a lot longer than from Vietnam to now. Like a lot longer than that. Like more like from the beginning of the planet to now, and maybe longer. Okay? So any one of them would have had any amount of time, real time experience of your life.
Mm.
In real time, where you were conceived, born, grew up, became self-aware, raised a family, got old, died in close proximity of years to your spouse, and that was the end of you. And they were alive that whole time watching. Yes, it's kind of Santa Claus, and yes, it's kind of creepy. And I'm okay with that, actually, because I believe them benevolent in the angelic, and completely malevolent in the demonic. But it talks about these beings studying us. Now, if they live multiple human lifetimes, would one of them possibly been able to recall Genghis Khan? Well, yeah, evidently. Okay.
Yeah.
Could they relate the intimate story of Genghis Khan, being that they studied Genghis Khan his entire life in real time? Could they recall that with great detail? Well, there's nothing wrong with their brain. Heck, I can do that. I can tell you about people in my past in great detail from when I knew them. Okay, so it's not even special, actually. Could that be communicated to someone else who is also a consciousness? That's obvious. It's what we're doing right now, right? Okay, here's the problem. When I sense something internally, I have a tendency to personalize it and internalize it. Is that necessarily the situation? Well, yeah, people come out of Rocky and they're acting like they're boxers. They're
That's
not
true.
boxers. Okay? They are not professional boxers who have an Italian and a great, shoulder frame and a good reach. That's not who that person is. But they'll come out personalizing it because they were emotionally moved. I can't imagine something more emotionally moving and persuasive to me personally than an internal dialogue that I see as myself.
Right.
Now, if prayer, accidental and otherwise, to the angelic or the demonic is perceived individually as an internal dialogue and personal experience, of course they're going to think they had that life. Of course they would. Just like people come out of Rocky acting like they're boxers. Or when Karate Kid came out, there was children all over the sidewalk after that movie doing a swan style attack, which I think doesn't exist. I think it's maybe only in the movie, but you see people doing that. You saw it for years afterward, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, we tend to internalize our personal experience because, well, what else would you do? Now, there are people who are very, very good at that, and like Stephen King is excellent at that, and communicating it to others so that he's transferring his personal first-person experience and making it your first-person experience, which is why, you know, you're reading it and your heart starts racing when Pennywise shows up. You know,
Sure.
You've internalized it.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's just our nature that we would internalize it. Is it actual knowledge that is falsifiable in reality? Yes. Does that make it true? Yes, it's true. Okay. Does it make it their experience?
Right.
Maybe.
Not
but
necessarily.
probably not. But not necessarily. Yeah. So if I assume the least, I can say there was a recollection of a story or the acting out of a story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which that person had internalized, and the story itself was true.
I wanted to ask you this. I think I've asked you this before, Richard. So if I have, apologize. I remember a creationist telling me that the flood's purpose was actually to wipe out the Nephilim
It
and
failed.
all the descendants, but it failed apparently, right? Is that the? Okay, so it's a shame we didn't get another flood or two, but okay.
Well, their flood conception doesn't work consistently within the text, and as a baseline, first thing you can eliminate is inconsistency. You find an inconsistency, they are wrong, or the text is wrong. In which case, it has no value either way.
Right. Of
Okay,
course, you've
so
mentioned that tales
wrong.
get told repeatedly, so maybe maybe there are multiple instances of this, and we just aren't aware because we're lost in the text. Hi. By the way, Titan, this is Erica. She's a friend of mine joining us in chat.
You're very
Just
nice,
thought,
Steve.
just wanted to say hi. Anyway, back to you, Richard.
Okay, so
Steve, I can't
Trying to-
believe you're still talking
Okay.
about the flood the way that is typically understood by Christians on this channel, man. I mean, I don't
Well, it
wanna
is
be mean,
interesting. It is interesting.
but we've gone over the flood thing more than any other topic, dude. I mean, we're not.
Oh, well, I'm guilty of my brain is mush. I got to tell you, I have
Fair
two
enough.
different sleep disorders,
Okay,
and-
okay. I apologize.
and so I claim the right to revise.
okay,
But,
so the Steve, the Christian is defeated at the very beginning of the story, and they just glaze their eyes over and ignore that. What it reads is, and there were giants in the earth in those days and after that.
Oh, okay.
So they just skip the last half of the idea.
Mm.
And then you have obvious occurrence of giants after the flood narrative. Goliath's brother, and blah, 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 and the whole city of Ai, and blah, blah, blah. It goes on and on and on about giants. Okay, so if they think that the flood was to eliminate the giants, which in code talk, it is, it just hasn't happened yet, But if they think that's a past event that should have been successful, it's an evident failure within the story, and the story's inconsistent.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems like there's more giants after the flood in the story.
There's more mentioned by name
Yeah, for sure.
and by acts, because it just says giants, and then it's after the flood it goes into the description of what giants do.
You know, when you think about it, there are a lot of giants. Like sometimes when you drive past a car dealership, there's
Yeah.
this giant thing sort of waving around.
There's a hardware store that has both Paul Bunyan and Babe.
That's right.
There is.
Yeah, it's a huge. They're like life, like in the story, in that alternate reality of Paul Bunyan and Babe, they're actual size.
Oh,
Statues.
what
yeah.
hardware store does that? I don't live in the U.S.
Was it a hardware store or a restaurant? I could be wrong, but it's famous. They made.
I think it's one of those Highway 69, landmarks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think it's out there. It's like on a famous road, and you go visit and take your picture next to it.
I think it's Highway 66, though, isn't it?
Oh, maybe
And then
it's
there's
66.
the giant known as Big Boy, who delivers
Yes.
family restaurant meals at reasonable prices.
Yeah, it's
So-
also called with the checker, the gingham
Yeah.
checker. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, Steve, one of the like cruxes of Richard's reading frame is that the flood and waters in general refers to people, right?
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
and the expanding population of humanity, and so that's like what's happening now, according to that reading frame. And so the Nephilim are among us, the giants are
They
among
should be.
us, and they will be eventually eliminated not by the flood, but by what happens to the flood.
Right.
The kind of the process
through
of the flood.
judgment, and then they're rejected they're rejected by heaven. So
By
they're the only humanoid, non-angelic, rejected by heaven, and it's a process of recycling their flesh, which what they should have been without the genetic disturbance is something different than what they ended up to be. And they too will be restored into heaven, born again, and have a chance of wanting to stay there and not being a Nephilim.
Wouldn't Nephilim by definition be partly angelic? They're the sons of God.
No,
No?
what's that word God right there?
Oh, right. Because okay, sorry. Sons Vel.
Elohim.
Nope. Elohim. Are the Elohim good or bad?
There's a good and bad Elohim.
Yes, there is.
So we're into Manichaeism then.
I don't know what that meant.
Oh,
I think it does,
Manichaeism
yeah.
is this interesting idea that's appeared among certain Christian sects, that there's a good God and an evil God, and they're equal, and they're in a fight for,
Not necessarily equal. I think the big example is Zoroastrianism.
Yeah.
So one of them does win, but
Oh, okay.
yeah,
One of them's called Ahura Mazda. I can't remember what the other one is called.
I don't know the names.
I don't know.
Why
but
do I
I
just
understand
remember
that
one of them?
Zoroaster was the prophet, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know the names of the gods, but if you look up the Hebrew Elohim, you end up with powerful beings, and if you trace that back, they may be benevolent, they may be malevolent.
Mm.
And since our name is Adama, then you have to say, well, then the namer of man that's what definitions do, is they create a set. And everything in the set is the thing, and everything out of the set is not that thing. And that's the definition of a thing. So the namer of Adama doesn't experience emotions, where Adam means literally shows blood in the face like the red clay of the earth. Okay? Like that color red, which is generally true of human beings, but it has to distinguish between the namer and the named, or else it's not a name. So to say that this thing turns red in the face, is to say that I don't. If that made sense.
I don't know if that follows.
It sounds like
Okay.
set theory, but I'm not much of a
But
mathematician.
Mac, what if you had a son and named him Mac, but not the second? But you named him exactly your name.
I think it would be more like, if I named my child after a feature, like a physical feature that they had, that I also have. So
Yeah, that would make no sense.
like, well, I mean, it would be an okay name for them. Still be,
Sure, but it doesn't differentiate. I need a picture of you, both, or an artist's conception of you both.
I
or
was just
something
thinking
to
that might be
differentiate.
that might be what the creators appreciated about them, because this is finally we've created something that has this feature that we also have. Maybe it's in comparison to something, but not to them. Maybe it's in comparison to other creations that didn't have.
Couldn't
that
they just
feature.
do that by offspring?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how
I mean,
these
if they
things
could,
work.
they could replicate.
I don't know how
Apparently,
God's.
there was a society of them. If
Yeah.
there's a society of them, they have sex and they duplicate. I mean, if they're complex organisms.
Hmm.
There's mitosis. I'm not making any kind of assumptions. I don't know.
Fair enough, but
Yeah.
but replication by whatever means would create more like yourself, and the reasons that you would have names is to make distinctions.
Okay.
I don't know what else a name does.
No, I agree with that. I just don't necessarily think the distinction has to be from the creator, like a distinction from the creator. Like it could be a name that makes it distinctive from the other creations.
No, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But in the story, the Elohim name it Adam.
Right.
It says directly that that's what they're calling them.
Right. Right. And I knew that, and I knew the Hebrew translation of Adam when I was fairly young and still like going to Methodist church and stuff. And what they would say was, that's what makes us different from the other animals, is that we have emotion and that we blush and that we turn red, or at least we have developed emotions more than other animals. If you want to be super.
Yeah, I think there's other animals that have emotions,
Of
just not
course,
at the
yeah.
level that we do.
Yeah. So, but I think that same pastor would have told me that this was part of our likeness of God. Like this is part of how we are created in the likeness of God, is we have this capacity for emotion and empathy and love and things like that. And not that it makes us distinct.
If we
from
could
God.
find, if we could find one time before Adam that Elohim expresses an emotion, or anywhere in the text where there's a set of powerful beings doing negative things, again, that would hurt us, evil things, right, that express an emotion, or if there's any story of any czar or pharaoh at any point ever expressing any emotion whatsoever, then I would take that as an argument.
Well, God, after creating everything, said and saw that it was good, which
Oh, that's true.
I think is could be regarded as an emotion.
Wait,
Maybe.
are you talking about you've now switched from Adam to the creation of the planet?
Yes.
So now
Well, you
you're in
asked
the sixth. But the creation of the planet is a good thing for us, done by an Elohim, which we have to discern. We have to discern from context whether those Elohim are demonic or angelic. And if we call it good that there is an earth, and if we call it good that we are here, then we have to say those were good Elohim.
Okay.
Okay, so that would be angels, not demons.
Okay. Agreed.
Whereas I think at the beginning of the story of the creation of Adam, and it expounds on it greatly in other stories throughout the text, the Elohim there are not nice. They're not kind. They do not have any love for us. In fact, they express no emotion ever. In any Caesar, in any Pharaoh, in any of these stories, where the name means to the original people an evil, powerful being, no emotions. You'll never find it. You'll see actions, but there's nothing emotional about the actions. They're necessary actions. They're I mean, Spock's dad would have done exactly the same thing.
Mm. Hmm.
Spock's dad married a human. He was a softie.
He was, yeah. He was not a very hardcore logist. Maybe she was just really pretty in his view, and he was willing to put up with her emotions. Don't ask me how that marriage lasts. I can't. I mean, I have emotions, and I can't deal with women. But.
Remember, I used to write for a Star Trek magazine.
Oh yeah.
So I may have even greater nerd cred, street cred than either of you.
I believe
Just
you
by
would.
that singular sentence, you do.
Yes, I'm afraid so. It's just, yeah.
Got the nerd creds rolling out, just flowing out the pockets.
I can't help but bring it up because I'm so cool.
Yeah. Well, in my next eldest brother's case, that would be viewed as extremely cool.
Oh, thanks for dropping by, Erica. That was good of you. Hope you had a good time.
Yeah, come by again sometime. Vote on a video and stuff. Give your opinion. You'll be, you know, if you guys, anybody ever who watches this, side chat or just staying silent or whatever, I'm not so busy that I can't respond to your comments on videos. I'm not that busy. I can totally do it, and I can address your particular brain instead of general brains, and it's better. It's a better explanation than what you're going to get from me talking to Mac, because you're not Mac, and you're not Steve. So there you go.
Pretty sure. Yeah.
Pretty.
I
mean,
if it's okay, I'm feeling kind of tuckered myself there, Richard. If it's okay, I'd like to sign off.
Well, let me wrap this up just real quick with you.
Pardon me?
Let me just wrap this up real quick with you.
Yeah, okay.
And always a pleasure to have you. What little time we can is deeply appreciated, and I thank you for your effort. Okay. It doesn't make sense to me, the Christian context throughout the Bible concerning the flood, where the only definition given for the flood is large group of beings, whether they be angels descending from the heavens, that deluge, which does wipe out the planet, or our gradual growth and our destruction of this planet, creating a scenario where we can't even live here, which is what we need to be saved from.
Drink some water before you take a nap. Otherwise, you might have dreams about that.
Drinking water stops dreams?
You just want to interrupt the direct consciousness flow right to sleep.
Don't go to bed like...
Yeah, right now. Yeah, just have a break first.
Well, that presumes I had consciousness in the first place. A whole can of worms, let me tell you.
You seem to be able to choose sentence structures and stuff.
Well, so many years of writing, it just flows out. Doesn't have to make any sense, but it sounds good. All right, I'm signing off. It's
all
been
right.
real.
Peace, Steve. Thanks,
Bye to you both.
Nice.
Okay, so where do we go from here now that all the children are grown up? Where do we go from here, Mac?
Well, I can naturally transition this. We can. I forget where it was, but the other day I saw our mutual friend Nisha on a panel. Do you know Nisha? She has a long YouTube name, but
Nisha, sheriff of the Borderlands, and
That's it.
etc. Yes.
Yeah, she's lovely. She was talking about her understanding of the Nephilim and that whole thing, and for her, it's a genetic thing that gets purified at the end of the world, where like they and I was thinking like it's not for the first time. I was thinking this is exactly what Richard would say, except for she's thinking something totally differently than you are, just because she's thinking of it in terms of a different time frame or time structure. You know, she's thinking of I mean, maybe she's right on path with you actually. But there are differences. I mean, she has more of a supernatural kind of comprehension, and
Yes.
but you
Yeah.
speak the exact same language, you know. And I think that actually, like, I've been chewing on that since then, because it made me think about how I've seen you interacting with other theists and religious folk who don't have problems conversing with you on really using exactly the language you use, but it's you're not saying the same things. You know, from my point of view, I
Yep.
can see the difference, and I'm
I
sure
do
you
too.
can as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is troubling. It
Well,
looks like confusion to me. You know, and
I think it is confusion. I think it's
yeah,
theirs, and they can have it. And I don't want any of the confusion. There is evident in the text two usages to born again. Okay, which is why, and it's pointed out quite clearly the difference between the two. When one character says, "Am I to crawl into my mother's womb?" You know, as an adult, is that what you expect
right,
of me?
right,
So that's like opening an opportunity where the narrator can say, "No, I mean this," you know. Um, but it's both metaphorical and quite literal, and it depends on where you're talking about it, which one that it means. And yes, that can get really dicey really quick, and you'll
right.
find that these different Christian sects, that's where they separate. Is, oh, it's, we think it's this view of that thing, where we think it's the other view of that thing,
That's
and
right.
that's where there's different sects of Christianity.
Yeah,
Um, but I always find inconsistencies in all the reading frames that I hear espoused, other than the one that I've adopted. Now, if I find an inconsistency in the one that I've adopted, it will become either dismissed or refined, and it all depends on what the thing is, and I don't know what that thing is yet,
sure.
so I can't even speak to it really. All right, so it makes sense to me that if you're going to have a physicality in heaven, and that heaven also physical, and you experience it in real ways, that you'll have to be born again. Obviously, like there's when you say things like, "I am not a god of the dead, I am a god of the living, and the dead know nothing." Well, what does
Right,
that mean? It means they're flipping dead. They're
right,
atheistic dead. They're materialistic dead. They're freaking dead.
right.
Now Christians, because of, on average, and I'm making a conglomerate of many sects of Christianity, and I
Sure.
know that's flawed, but overall, they'll say things like, well, you know, the Bible, and this tears churches apart right here. The Bible says to be dead is to be to be out of the physical and out of the presence of this world is to be in the presence of God. Well, yes, to the person who died, because in between those two things, they knew nothing.
Right,
They
right,
literally knew nothing. There was no time. There was no experience at all. Because if you die, that's an end of experience, and when you're in the womb, that's the beginning of an experience. And there was no time in between. I don't care if it's a million years. There was no million years.
right.
Uh, for Einstein and Lenin, there will be no this whole time frame that we're experiencing. Right? It
They
doesn't
know nothing.
exist.
Yeah, they know
They
nothing.
know
Yeah,
nothing.
yeah. Okay.
So they'll be like being exploded in a cave, and then what's this big thing? Oh, that's like a mom concept. What's that? It's a dad concept.
Right.
Uh, this is feeding, and then suddenly I'm a me, and what's that mean? And oh my gosh, I'm not a part of mom. I'm this other thing completely.
Born
You know,
again. Yeah.
and they'll be born again and self-realized, just like we did the first time.
Hmm.
Um,
Sort of
so
sounds like
I mean,
reincarnation.
it's reincarnation or cloning. You could call
Right.
it either one. That's the same thing for me. Okay, so I think the text demands that. On the other hand, if I have really really bad ideas that keep me from accepting reality, right?
Right.
Like, like, if I say something like, "I am not a god of the dead, I am a god of the living, and the dead know nothing." Well, what does that mean? It means they're flipping dead. They're science is objective.
Okay.
Then I'm throwing away the fact of the observer in science. Like, there's no friggin' observer. And he's not subjective. Bullcrap.
Right.
There's all kinds of presuppositions in order for science to be performed. And it's completely a human construct, which is why it's called a philosophy of science. It's not just science and that's the only word. And science itself means to know, as in a way to know, not the way to know all things, right? So that could keep me from philosophy, for instance, which answers the why instead of the what, right? And science does its best to not even look at the why and only talk about the what.
Yeah.
But still within the what is our observations which have to be subjective, right? And I could go really into why there should never be within peer review a suggestion of a result, ever. That is a fundamental flaw in science. That I tell you what result you're going to get. Do they understand the word bias? Like, why is there a suggestion as to what result you should get? No, that should be in a separate sealed envelope and you don't know. And you shouldn't be able to compare results at all until the experiment is over. And if you do that, you get weird results. Which should like bring you right back to Schrodinger's cat, and what the hell does that mean? Okay, so...
Well, so you were saying if you have a idea or a fundamental idea that it doesn't comport with reality,
right.
then, and you use this science is objective as an example of that.
Yes, so I didn't get lost. Were you
okay.
lost?
No, I was getting myself back on track. Yes, I was a little lost. Yeah, I'm trying to see where I'm at. Yeah.
All right,
okay.
so a person need to repent of these ideas that keep them away from reality. Because it results in failure, and that results in frustration and anger, and eventually you're going to kill somebody. And that's bad. Don't kill folks.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So accept reality and stop killing folks.
Okay. Right.
All right. So that's repentance. Okay? And colloquially, spiritually, I can say, I was 5, and I remember being 5, but I'm not that person, Richard, who is 5.
Right.
Okay? So I've changed over time. I've adopted new ideas, and I'm not the same person, although I'm the same continuous being in a ship of Theseus kind of cell replacement thing, but I'm still the same person because of continuous experience. So I have repented of many things. Probably the first thing I remember repenting of was the Easter Bunny, and then Santa Claus.
Right.
And then I had to repent that girls are yucky. All right, I remember repenting of that and changing my mind. And then the list goes on and on. It's a really long list of things I've repented from where I had bad ideas and I got corrected. And being corrected is good. Makes you more right.
Right.
Okay. All right. So there's those two different kinds of being born again. And the Bible goes into great detail about it. The Exodus, when we leave the planet, the old men will die, and only the newborn will keep going and get to the land of promise. If you're not reborn, you will not get to the land of promise. What does that mean? That means that everyone has bad ideas right now. Everyone, in every major group. There may be, little tiny pockets, or there might be a person here and a person there, but there's no group that's right.
Unfortunately, it's not a difficult claim to believe.
Yeah, no kidding.
To agree with, yeah.
Like, wow, we do some dumb stuff.
Oh, it's very dumb out there.
I'm not good at quoting, who the author was of some saying. But somebody much smarter than I said, a singular person is logical and rational and stable, and a group of persons are irrational, unstable, and dangerous.
Yeah, that's really how it seems. It's amazing.
I don't know what happens when we start being together in groups, but it screws stuff up.
So what's baptism?
Oh, baptism. See, you must be baptized for sin. okay, let me just run you down the logic of that and why the way Christians look at it makes no sense, and the text makes perfect sense in itself and is completely consistent. Okay, are there angels in heaven actively sinning, according to the story?
No.
No. There's no sin allowed in heaven. So
Right.
if you're in heaven, you're not sinning.
Right.
Okay, in order to sin, where do you have to be?
Outside of heaven, right?
Yeah, where are you
I
going to
guess
be outside of heaven?
Earth. Yeah.
You're going to be on an earth, okay?
Planet
So-
side.
Your planet, that's one way to say it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
born there, and it was a long-term experiment, and eventually the shuttlecraft comes and you ascend. But yeah, for now you're Earthborn, right?
Right.
Ooh, Earthborn, I like that.
That's good.
Okay, so
All
the
natural.
Earthborn, the Earthborn are in sin because there's no sin in our other location. Okay, so to say you must be baptized for sin, if I just expounded it and just used a lot more words, I would say it this way. In order that you have experienced sin, you must have been on an earth. Because those born into heaven, well, there's no sin there.
Right.
There's no
right.
sin to experience.
Okay. Gotcha.
So you must be baptized for sin, would be the right way to say it. Those would be the right nuances. And whereas
Right.
if I said it, oh, you must be baptized for sin. You must be baptized. That's the wrong way to say it. Now it's exactly the same phrase and words, but it means not even close to the same thing. In order that you have experienced sin, you must have been on an earth. What a privilege.
Right.
You're an original inhabitant of this heaven. You lived through end times and you ascended. And I can tell because you don't have the average correct skin color, hair color, eye color. You don't have those things. You have some kind of distinction of ethnicity.
Oh, that's
So in
interesting.
heaven, you can look at anyone with ethnic diversity and say, "Oh my gosh, oh my gosh,
You're one of those
that's
guys.
incredible! You
Yeah.
must have been baptized for sin." And they'll say, "Yes, I was baptized for sin." That would be like the way to reply to that. Wow, so you know what a broken arm is. Can you explain a broken arm? Yeah,
Right.
sure. Come sit down. I'll explain what a broken arm is.
Right.
All right. I'll explain what cancer is. I know what those things mean. It's not a theory.
I'm bad at this, but I'm trying to go back through my memory of the, what I remember the Bible saying about baptism and moments of Of course, there's the famous one, John the Baptist baptizing Christ.
Well, the reason you must be immersed in water for your sin, you must be baptized for sin, is because you couldn't have sinned some other way.
Right. Right.
It doesn't say you should be. Find me one line where it says you should be baptized for sin. Nope.
I remember Paul said, "I'm glad I didn't baptize all of you. Just baptized what's his name and this other guy, and I think I baptized one other too." I think
Yeah.
he said that in Corinthians. But yeah, that's okay. So baptized in waters means have had experience within the population on Earth.
Yeah.
Have had that experience of suffering and sin.
You want to hear the funny part?
Sure.
Atheists are baptized.
Interesting.
They have no choice
And of
about
course,
it.
that's another one of those things that causes sectarianism in Christianity. There's so much grief about baptism and how to do it and when to do it and how many times to do it and even if you should do it or
Yeah.
like
How to do it properly.
priests doing
Yeah.
it with water guns during COVID, so they don't get too close to the babies. I saw a picture where that was happening.
I believe you. See, but those are the kind of laughs I have all the time listening to these doctrines.
Right. It's not any
Like,
sillier
don't you
than-
understand that the baby
Yeah.
is here, and that is baptism, and it has
Right.
no choice about it, and the
Right.
fact that there are other beings around it, and that those other beings are promoting, experiencing, accidentally committing sins, means they are baptized.
Right.
It's not a choice. It's not a ritual at all.
Right.
Right.
That's great. Jason says smothered and covered hash browns are a sin. Man,
And a darn good one.
it's my kind of sin, yeah.
But that is that not specifically Waffle House ordering speech?
Oh, I think it is.
Smothered and covered? Yeah, I have a sibling who used to work there. He explained all these terms to me. Yeah.
Sounds delicious. Richard, as usual, our time has flown by and we're 10 after the hour now.
Yeah, I know.
I better
Have
go
this
tend to
biology
my
book.
other commitments.
Spoil them rotten with whatever excess you have.
I sure will. I sure will. Thank you so much. We always talk about tough stuff, but I always leave feeling elated and feeling lighter. So I really
That's
appreciate
weird,
your
huh?
time. Yeah, it really is. It's weird.
I feel that way all the time, though. I wish others did too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I'm growing every day. Maybe I'll get there. Maybe I'll feel that way.
I think the whole earth gets there in our Exodus. I think the whole earth gets there, which would be
Awesome.
just friggin' amazing. Thank you
And you
for your
think
time,
it's-
Mac.
You think it's soon, right?
You know, there's no point in the revelations without the completion of them.
Right.
And I take it very seriously when Christ says the time is at hand, that these things will be revealed when the time is at hand. And you'll know because old men will dream dreams and young men will have visions.
Right.
And you'll see these minor signs. And the great signs are for the atheist, the non-believer, an evil nation, a non-believing nation
Sure.
that needs the signs, which only means the signs haven't happened, which is evidently true because we still have people who do not believe.
Right.
I mean, large masses.
Fair enough.
Fair
All right,
enough.
brother. I'll see you around. We'll see you next week at least.
I hope so.
Okay. Thanks everybody in the chat and everybody in the future. Peace.
Let's see. There were some comments here before I close this out. It seemed deserve some attention. You guys were maybe speaking to me. I'm not totally sure. Okay, if you expound on this, SPM, I would reply to you. But I don't know how to reply right now. That was a timely statement that you made, not a vague one. I'm sure it was pointed at the time, but I needed to have read it immediately and I didn't see it. So I don't know what this refers to. Coffee camping. I did that when I was reading the Bible. Back in 2012, I did a lot of coffee camping. Atheists being baptized. Yes, to be baptized in water, where water means large group of people, means to be submerged in a large group of people. That is, you already are. You're already submerged in a large group of people because there's 8 billion, a little bit over that, plus, of us now. So you are submersed in the waters. Unless you're a hermit or something, I guess. So atheists, being part of a group of people, are just like everyone else, submersed in water. Waters. We are. So that's what baptism is to be submersed in the waters. So everyone's baptized. Everyone on the planet, from the time they're self-conscious, like self-aware, something like "I'm not mom" can be stated. They are baptized. It might be a small family group at first, but as you grow up, that expounds into the whole community, and eventually you realize the whole earth. But I am a hermit. You are not a hermit. You can't be here and a hermit. You might be a physical hermit, I guess. Yeah, we all try to create maps and wade through the waters, and it's a mess. And that mess of wading through the waters. This is precisely why, when you read the stories, I know, we're good. This is precisely why, pagan mum, that there's a tumult, a storm on the waters. That's because there was an alien invasion and everyone's upset. That's why there's a tumult on the waters, like always. There's no calm waters, you know. Except that you get led to, which don't exist in the present, but as a future event, you get led to still waters. Those still waters again would be people at peace, which we're not at peace right now. That hasn't happened. So this is also why there's a boat that contains the apostles. That has to be because they're separated and they're over the waters. That's what boats do. And of course, you have Cephas, Peter, step out of the boat. What does that mean? He tried to walk on the waters or be above the people or lead them, but not in the boat. See, now that's a special Jesus trick right there. That Jesus doesn't need to be part of the group in the boat in order to be walking on the waters or leading the people. So Peter steps out of the boat, meaning he took his eyes off the actual Christ. That is to say that he thought he could be Christ. So Peter, at least for a time, thought he was Christ, which is really interesting and delusional. And of course, that's a falsehood. It doesn't work. He's not the actual natural leader of the people. So what happens to him in the story? He falls down in the waters. What does that mean? He becomes part of the larger group, right? And what does Jesus say? Well, Jesus puts out his hand and pulls him back up over the waters, right? That is, he corrects him, gets him out of the group, says, look, you already knew this stuff. Let me show you what that... Oh, thank you. I never thought about this stuff either. This just came to me necessarily. You've heard that story. I'm not responsible. I'm just repeating things that I think are true. So Peter falls down in the water. Jesus takes him by the hand, lifts him up out of the waters, and puts him back in the boat where he belongs. That means that Peter became a non-believer. He lost his religion. Jesus had to reteach him because he was probably looking at something very, very skewed and needed fixed. And of course, being back in the boat means, again, he'll be able to be one of those pillars in heaven and an advisor to Christ in that heaven. Yeah, they can be scary. I don't know if you're saying that you're feeling that it was scary just now, or if you're just speaking generally. All right. So the difference between Jesus in the story and Peter in the story is Jesus' level of understanding of the story. Of course, you think, well, if they're going to be the hero, they better have perfect understanding, and the story says that he does, and that everybody else doesn't. And it says that repeatedly. Like the apostles are always asking for clarity about some story or something. They don't get what he's saying. In general. Okay, cool. What's the alien invasion? The Skyworks 600. The arrival of heaven. Let me fix this. And this is the last thing I'm going to do today. Not because I don't love you guys, but just because time restraints. Okay. You can see a little bit of leaves in the upper right-hand corner of this painting, and in the some like tree leaves, and then you get some pine leaves in the lower left-hand corner there. Pine branch. That's because this is supposed to represent you in the first person looking upward toward the sky. That little gray coin right there, that's supposed to be the moon. Now this is not perfectly to scale, but it ain't bad. It's not totally off. Oh, I love you guys too, actually. So what you have is a universal portrait of the underside of heaven, also called the red dragon in some parts of China, that lives in the sky, lives forever, is extremely wise, like knows all things, that red dragon. Or chapter 4 of the book of Revelation. Or also the red star Kachina. Or also, I could just go on forever talking about different religious expressions of this coming down from the sky. Okay? And it mentions the color, the shape. I mean, it defines. It's not guesswork. It defines the color, the shape, the size, the comparative locations, what they would look like in comparison to each other as they descend. And all of this is in every religion around the world that I have looked at, which is several and diverse, and some of them, they didn't even meet each other till very recently. So it's heaven's arrival. That's the quote-unquote alien invasion. It's an alien invasion of ancient human beings, but still, it's going to freak us out. Because, well, we're not expecting that, really. I mean, some people are kind of expecting it. They'll probably be the people who accept it most easily. Funny thing is, I really think that, the person who holds a sign on top of the Empire State Building that reads, "Aliens take me away, I'm ready to go," would accept heaven's arrival easier than your local preacher would. Yeah, the person the preacher makes fun of. Easier time going to heaven. Which is kind of ironic. The low become high and the high become low and all that. All right, guys, till next time. I don't know when that will be. But you'll be on my mind. Truly you will. Because I want to think about what you need so that our minds meld better together. Till next time, I want you all to know that I truly look forward to the day that all of us on this whole planet, all of us are great friends. Till next time.